Well, this is Steve Carlson. I'm on the campaign trail to Duluth, Minnesota for the debate, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning with the Duluth Chamber of Commerce. Now, I did wire ahead, and I've put some of that on the internet already, some of that discussion yesterday, because I intend to file a complaint with the Federal Communications Commission political section regarding the creation of a broadcast debate that is purely partisan and excluding major parties from Minnesota. So I wanted first to contact all the parties involved, and here are the parties involved. Al Franken. Al wants to choose locations where he can control the action. This is his first debate, unless you call Farm Fest a debate. I call that a cattle call, no disrespect to the organizers. However, you had 15 Senate candidates. They're all answering the same question, and that's great practice for not falling asleep in case the Senate needs to stay up overnight. But it isn't much of a debate. By the time they passed the second or third person, I'm sure all the possible answers to every question had been given. So I don't call that a debate. But Al has finally tried to duck into an arrangement in which he goes on TV, looks good, uses his television skills, and yet he doesn't say anything. He doesn't take any questions. He doesn't allow, he's like that bullfighter who doesn't allow the bull to get near him before he sticks him with the sword. And Mike, I guess, is supposed to be the bull. What is the problem here? I talked to Chuck Frederick, and then, as I said last week, he said they decided long ago only to allow Democrat and Republican nominees in, and the reason was because they thought those two parties virtually controlled or almost controlled all of the U.S. Senate. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So I went ahead and I realized before I file that this is a violation of the equal time provisions as well as the First Amendment to the United States Constitution to run this so-called debate, to give all this television exposure only to two select candidates to harm all other candidates, and in this case a major party whose rights are at stake, the Independent Party. 41% of the voters in Minnesota were independent. They were not Democrat, they were not Republican. But it seems like the Duluth Chamber of Commerce and Duluth News Tribune and the Northland News Center want to keep this between two parties, kind of an insider operation. And I don't think the people of Minnesota want that. Just last week, Gallup did a poll that 58% of the voters of the United States want a third party. And these people are trying to kill a third party. Now, how does this make sense? Does Duluth News Tribune, Duluth Chamber of Commerce, with their cigar smoking backroom deals, do they actually ever listen to the people of the United States, to the people of Minnesota? So anyway, I wanted to send this email just to make sure each one of these people knew I was a legally qualified candidate. So I sent it to Al Franken's campaign, to Mike McFadden's campaign, because between them, they chose this arrangement. They chose to avoid debating, to make it look like they're debating. And I'll tell you another thing too. Most of these debates that they ever have really are not debates. Maybe there's a few where they really get to some of the issues that the voters care about. But generally, they're window dressing. Nonetheless, they're important for people to get to see how do you handle the little softballs that they throw up in the debates. So I got this email back from Chuck Frederick. He's the opinion page director at the Duluth News Tribune, and he kind of handles this. Then there's another person named Roger Waden, and he's supposed to be an education and policy director at the Duluth Chamber of Commerce. Apparently, he thinks that whoever his educational audience is don't want to hear anything except the gridlock that we've heard in Washington. And so Roger and Chuck are playing gatekeeper. And this was copied to both the McFadden and Franken campaign and to the news director and producer at the My 9 TV, which is broadcasting this. And of course, there's this whole argument, you'll hear about it, because I'll take this to Washington. One way or the other, this election campaign is going to get to Washington. And I will explain how they find ways to basically kill the laws that they pass in Congress, just like they kill the amendment that was put forth by the framers of the Bill of Rights of the United States. And the fact that you have a constitutional right that an election is going to take place by the voters, and we all know that you can't make an informed decision if you don't see the candidates and the issues. And many of you are seeing me and my positions if you click these videos open at the Twitter feeds, and I urge you to do that. And I'd like to see if you can go ahead and respond back to me at my Twitter account, which all you have to do is reply to it. Please don't just tell me to shut up, okay? Please respond on some substantive issues that will help advance the democracy and the debate. But it appears that this little note back to me, didn't you get the note from last week, says Chuck? I'm sure you must have seen that I gave you this great reason that we only want to hear from Democrats and Republicans around here because they control the U.S. Senate. Well, let's talk about the U.S. Senate. Chuck's a gatekeeper, Roger's a gatekeeper, and what they are gatekeepers to gridlock. And candidates like McFadden and Franken sit by, and they're happy to keep the doors to democracy locked. They may shut people out of the very debate, so I won't even be able to hear the words. And hopefully I'll be able to talk to the news media there, not only about how I feel, but about some of these important issues that I've raised. I've got 2 debate this videos I've just put out, and I'm saying to Al and Mike, hey, debate these issues. First one is the Middle East and the situation, perilous situation we face there and the potential for terrorism. The second one I've just released today is on Obamacare. We don't want to just repeal Obamacare. It's repealing itself. It's being repealed by Barack Obama, its namesake, and he's just modifying it all the time. And so what we want to do is not be blocked from life-saving activity. One of the biggest lies coming out of Obamacare is not, as Mike McFadden says, that they would lower the costs, and in fact the cost is going up. That's a lie, but it's not the biggest lie. The biggest lie is it creates this impression that somehow the Democrats want to save lives. They don't want to save lives. They want to spend money. They want to spend money with their constituents. And in fact, more lives are going to be lost, not only if we have a socialist system, but right now, because people are not paying attention to the war on killer diseases that I allude to in the video I put out today, Debate This, Healthcare. So they don't want to save lives, but on the other hand, they want to give this impression that Republicans want all the poor people to go without health care, that Republicans only want the insurance companies to get rich. Well, I'm sure that a lot of the Republicans are in insurance companies and would very much like to get rich, thank you very much. And part of their objection to the way Obamacare is coming down is that it doesn't allow them to make any money at all, and they're probably going to get out of business. We saw that with Preferred One, was providing 60% of the participants in MNsure, which has to be one of the major vehicles for covering the uninsured here in Minnesota. And they dropped out of the picture. And they dropped out of the picture because Al Franken thought he had a genius idea. He thought, well, why don't we have the Congress just reach into these insurance companies and start taking money away from them while they're trying to implement Obamacare. So if they make too much from marketing and administrative activities, or there's some amount that they can spend on that, and then the rest, if they make too much money, we're going to take it back. The government's going to take it, and we're going to give it to other insurance companies. Now that's a form of socialism. It's price control, but it's basically delivering health care and health coverage through the government itself, using the premiums, not only forcing us to pay premiums for the individual mandate, but then they reach in and they play with those premiums. Now, what if a company is just very efficient, and by the way, wants to have a little money, so in case they need to pay out claims next year, that they would have enough to do that. So what they're doing is basically Franken is going around crippling all of these health insurance companies. And so Preferred One was definitely a victim of Al's genius as a freshman senator. Well, it's something Al should not have done. I know he takes credit for it. If he takes credit for it, you should vote against him. Because what we got to do is put this biggest lie aside. That somehow the Democrats want to save lives, and somehow no Republican wants to save lives, and they all don't care if the poor people die. So that's the biggest lie of his campaign about Obamacare. May it rest in peace. It is moribund. It's not going to make it. What we need to do is save the people, save the jobs. Anyway, that's what I say in my video today. You can look at it again. I've got my own personal, being touched personally by some of these attempts to save lives nationwide, congressional actions to save lives in there. Now I'm going to go up there, and I'd like to show you, I'd like to put right here so you can see it, what I'm going to show. I'm going to show you right here what I'm going to show the organizers of this, whatever you call it, parlor game, let's call it. It's not really a debate. You see right here says the nomination. Notice of nomination, Steve Carlson as a nominee for the United States Senate from the Independence Party. There it is. The gold seal came from Mark Ritchie. Now, what these people are doing is they're tearing this up. I'm just going to demonstrate. I'm not going to actually tear it up. They're tearing it up and they're throwing it to the wind because their gatekeeping power, they believe, is more important than your power as the voters. You have voted through the legislature to create third parties. This is a third party which Roger Whedon, Chuck Frederick, and the other two campaigns, I'm not sure about My 9 TV, are trying to kill. Mark Jenkins is trying to create litmus tests which make it impossible for this to breathe and survive. You have to believe in the full legalization of marijuana and the full destruction of religious rights regarding beliefs in morals, what marriage is, what families are. You have to throw that all aside to get in the door of the little clique that he's created because they have beat down the independent voters so much. So I'm going back. I'm going up to Duluth to push back. And I'm going to be very polite, but I'm going to show you what is really happening in this election campaign. And I'm going to show you how Mike and Al are trying to skate by, pretending with their little kid glove debates that they are actually paying attention to you and paying attention to the issues in this campaign. I'm Steve Carlson, and I approve this message.